But one of the things my dad also did, he was a coach. Like he coached rugby and stuff. And I think particularly in the US, I've become really interested in the role of coaches. So my basic view is that coaches, especially for boys, we're actually seeing like sports is going down for boys in the US now. Boys are less likely to play sports than in the past. Right?
Is that true? Bring that up.
It's going up. Yeah, the Aspen Institute has a really good project called Project Play, where they actually track the data. It's going up for girls and down for boys. Now, it's always been higher for boys, but sports participation is going down for boys. One reason for that is coaches. Like you need coaches to do that. And we can maybe get into male teachers, because actually one of the things that male teachers do, and my son has just become a teacher.
Oh, wonderful.
He's teaching 5th grade in Baltimore. And within a day of starting, someone heard his accent, because he's still got a British accent, heard his accent. He's a soccer coach now. And he actually is a good soccer player. But the point is he's immediately a coach, right? And I think that coaches are basically mental health professionals in disguise, right? I think they're doing a lot of the work that you'd otherwise do in terms of mental health. And you can kind of see like there'll be a line from the Aspen.
Okay, here we go. Right here it says, we have fewer boys are playing sports. In 2013, half of boys aged 6 to 17 participated regularly in sports, according to SFIA data. Only 41% of boys did in 2023.
Right.
Girls aged 6 to 12 had 34%, and 13 to 17 age girls were 38%, played at higher levels in 2023 than in any recent years.
Correct.
So girls is going up, like you said, boys is going down.
Correct.
Some of that could be attributed to also a lot more boys are like, they choose to become gamers and that sort of thing, but more sedentary things.
It could be, which is not necessarily a good thing.
Yeah.
Right? I mean, ideally you'd want to do a bit of both, but then the question is like, why are boys playing less sport than in the past?
Right.
And what is this coaching thing? And you can't get coaches. I'd love to see something like a Coach for America program. There's this Teach for America program, which gets people into teaching, because I think there's a lot of men who are struggling to know how to kind of connect with their community or what they can do.
Oh, for sure.
Right. Some of the older institutions, maybe they used to do that with, like through church or the Scouts or whatever, have maybe declined. They have declined. And if there was a way to kind of plug those men into a coaching role, I think that's important, because
huge.
When you, I mean, maybe this is maybe your experience, but like, I think if you look at the image of a coach sitting on the bench, like with a student, a boy or a young man sitting next to him, and he's like, "How you doing? Right? How are things at home? How are things with your mom? Et cetera." As you kind of, that's counseling.
Huge.
That's therapy, but you're just not calling it that. We've talked about male spaces and having like groups and spaces for men. I think that's
so starting one of those is good.
And if you're like, and you're seeing that, there's this thing called the men's sheds movement. Have you heard of that? It's coming over from Australia. It's just guys who get into like a shed and start fixing stuff together.
Really bring it up.
Shoulder to shoulder. The men's sheds movement.
Oh, I love
this. It's basically about guys and they get in a shed and they fix stuff, right? And it's very male, because it's about fixing stuff.
U.S. Men's Shed Association has partnered with Grouper to offer eligible members aged 65 or older payments for staying healthy and socially active. Okay. So the men's sheds, can you do an image of it? Just U.S. Men, can we just do men's sheds movement images? Oh, there's some fellas right there building a little...
because when men...
What is that, a birdhouse or something?
Men have to be doing something else while they're
shift a robe right
while
there.
They're being together, right? Not like it's just, right. It's just harder for us to just be together. Like when was the last time a friend of yours said, "Let's just meet for a coffee and then sit down and stare at each other for 2 hours"?
Yeah, that guy is obviously trying to be like sexy buddies or whatever, I think. And I think, you got to find something to do together. Paint something. Look for something. Let's go look for something.
Be of service.
Yes.
Find service. I think that's hugely important.
Boys and girls, join your local Boys and Girls Club chapter. You can volunteer there. What's another one?
You can be a champion. Like you can be like a big brother.
Yeah, that was a good one.
I'm just going through the process for that myself.
Congrats.
Signing up to do that. Because
I want to do that.
Being I know you talked to Scott about this, but just being a presence, I think, is hugely important. And like raising other people's kids, like there's this line, it takes a village to raise a child.
Yeah.
That's true. But here's the thing. Some of the villagers need to be men. And like we're in that village and we're helping to raise those kids, our neighbors' kids. It does that statement that it takes a village is right.
Oh, you don't realize as a parent, if there's a kid hanging out of your house sometimes, one of your kids' friends or something, you have a ton of influence on that kid.
Totally.
I mean, I got so much influence from most of my influence
you realize how important, how many men there are out there who sometimes just kind of need to be asked. There was this example happened in a school. I think it was a predominantly black school. And they had this day where they were going to teach the boys how to tie a tie. And the dads were going to come in with their sons and kind of teach their sons how to tie a tie. But then they realized that half the dads were not there. Half the boys didn't have fathers. Or their fathers were in prison, or they'd gone away, or whatever. And so they then really realized this was going to be a huge problem because some of the boys were going to have their dad come in and do it, and the others were going to feel left out. So they just did a call out to the community. I think I don't even know what it was, like a Facebook call out. Like, could we get some volunteers? We just need some men to kind of come in and help these boys. They had something like 5 times as many men as they needed to. These guys just all came. It's really beautiful.
So men are looking for it.
Yes, just need to be sometimes asked and called. And the other thing I'll say, because we haven't had a chance to talk about this yet, is that the fact that male teachers have become so much less common, I think, is a real problem.
Yeah.
It's gone from 33% male in the 80s to 23% male now, and it continues to fall. And I think that's a problem for all kinds of reasons. I think that for boys to sort of see men in the classroom, to actually have them as role models, also to see that education is a thing that like men care about as well.
Oh, that's a great point. Yeah,
As
one
well
of my
as women.
greatest influences was this guy, Charles Alder. He was my teacher. He was missing a finger. And, but
How did he lose his finger?
you know what happened to him? He was at a baseball game cheering on his son. He stood up. His wedding ring got caught on a piece of metal on the bleachers and pulled his finger right off.
I wish I hadn't asked now, but God bless him.
Pretty crazy. And my dad was missing a finger. And so I just related. I was like, oh, God wants these men without fingers to love me or whatever. You know, that's how I was thinking as a kid. It was just crazy. But that's how you think as a kid.
Yeah. Okay. So he was a huge influence on you.
Yeah.
Right. And
he was like.
Same for me. I had this teacher, Mr. Wyatt, English teacher. And up until that point, we were all like, words and poems.
Yeah.
And
Wyatt's a
girls,
fucking, yeah.
Yeah. A bunch of 15, 16-year-old boys.
Oh,
And then we had Mr. Wyatt. And Mr. Wyatt was a Korean War veteran. He was a bus driver in part-time. He was total curmudgeon. And he had us reading.
Korean bus driver sounds very risque.
No, he was a Korean veteran. He'd fought in the Korean War.
Veteran.
Sorry, so he'd fought in the Korean War, yeah. And he was just like this curmudgeonly guy. But he had us reading this poetry, and he loved it so much that we ended up loving it and getting into it. And I was like, maybe this whole writing words thing. I used to be in remedial English way back before that, but maybe it's maybe guys can do this too. And it was a huge change for me. And I mentioned before that, my son is now is teaching in Baltimore City. That's one, but we're like missing about 1 million men if we were to get close to gender equality. I'm not saying we'll get to that, but I think that the best answer to sort of some of the problems that a lot of boys have got is real, living, flesh and blood men in their lives, their dads, their neighbors, their uncles, but also their teachers. And the other thing male teachers do, they coach. Between 30 and 40% of male teachers are also coaches, much higher than for women, for all kinds of reasons we could go into. But the point is simply that for every male teacher, you get like half a coach, right? And so if we want more male coaches to be coaching our boys' sports teams, etc., we need more male teachers. And I can't believe that we're just letting the share of male teachers just go down and down and down and down, and no one's doing anything about it.
Especially when we had a great TV show here called Vice Principals or whatever. And that shit, you'd think would have helped. It was with Danny McBride was in it.
How long ago was that?
It's a couple years ago, so it might help a little bit. But definitely it might have upped the vibes of some of these guys being teachers.
And also like Abbott, do you know Abbott Elementary?
Yeah, people like that TV show.
That's got a bunch of male teachers in it too, which is like
so maybe you just need influence that. Like I remember when I was a kid, they had Coach was on and stuff like that.
Yeah.
But I guess it didn't really resonate that much. But they had like what was that TV? Dead Poet Society or whatever.
Yeah,
they had that
Robin
movie.
Williams. Yeah.
But I guess there was the one with they set up with Take a Man's who's that guy? Malcolm L. Jackson or whatever that guy's name was. No, it's he looks like kind of older, but still they said it would take a man 600 years to get out of this here prison. You know what I'm talking about? He talks like that.
No.
He's
that was a good accent, but I don't know.
He's in Shawshank Redemption. You know what his name? His name's Morgan Freeman. He played a school teacher.
Really?
Lean on Me, it was called.
Oh, yeah. But also there's this
Lean
new
on
one.
me.
There's this other one, The Holdovers, a couple of years ago, with Paul Giametti. So am I saying his name right?
Yes, I saw that.
Yeah, and
Holdovers
again,
was
it's like really good. And what those things have in common is there's this kind of this relationship between this kind of older guy, this kind of younger man, and they kind of learn from each other, and they go through some stuff together, and it's like it's really beautiful.
Yes, it was. That's a cool point. That's a great movie.
And it's kind of, I was really pleased to see that because it came up again with this thing. But one of the things that really frustrates me is that people will say, "Oh, boys need more. We need more positive male role models." And I'm like, we do. It's actually, you can't create them out of thin air, right? You can't just like add water and create male role model. But one thing we could do is make sure we have a lot more men in our schools. Right, that's something that we could do. We could have scholarships, we could have outreach programs, we could be incentivizing men. We could also be making it much easier to become a teacher as like a second career. Because one of the things that we know is that men are much more likely to go into teaching later.
Oh.
Right? They do something else first and then go. But it's really hard to do that.